Good evening and welcome to the Metaphysical Bible Hangout. I'm Reverend Sherry James, Senior Minister for Understanding Principles, and tonight we're having a conversation about substance. We're working from the text, Your Faith is Your Fortune by Neville Goddard, and it's just a powerful text, and I cannot say enough good things about this text. And so tonight we're going to be talking about liquid light. Liquid light. It is, well, let me just get into it and start the class. But the question is, do you know the secret to working with liquid light, AKA God's body? And so I want to talk about 4 keys tonight for doing that. We've got some announcements, opening prayer. We're going to talk about what is liquid light and liquid light as the key to prosperity, and then 4 insights on working with liquid light, and then Q&A. And of course, please ask questions throughout. Your questions help to guide the conversation, and so I definitely want you to ask as many questions as possible. I think it's important that you know your why, and I always try to find a different way to explain this because I want it to really land, and I think it's an important part of why, I'm out of town right now. Technically, it's not a vacation because I am here to speak, but it is kind of sort of like a vacation. But it's important to me to be available on Thursday nights because this is so important. But I just heard a question on a video that I watched right before I got ready to teach this, which is from Tom Bilyeu, who created Impact Theory, and he's one of the co-founders of Quest Nutrition. And he said, the question he asked was, what gives you more energy than it takes? What gives you more energy than it takes? And because that's where you'll find your passion. That's where you'll find the thing that is yours to do. Or what's the thing you do when you procrastinate? Because that's the thing that you have a thing for. You've got an affinity for it. And so then your next question is, okay, then how do I monetize it? And so this teaching about your divine nature, sharing information about who you are spiritually, and really just to teach this kind of information just energizes me. That when I finish, I'm not tired. I'm awake. I'm alive. I've even, some Thursdays, not recently, but in the past, where I was still getting my schedule together, I would, sit down to teach, and I would be so tired from the day. I may have worked all day or whatever. And so when I got to the end of the day, it was just like, okay, but then I would teach the class, and all of a sudden I was awake again. It's the conversation that I could have all night long, all day long, and never, ever, ever, ever get tired. There's always new dimensions. And so the question is, what is that thing for you that gives you more energy than it takes from you? And for me, it's having this conversation about your divine nature. It's sharing with you who you are at the core of your being, even without me knowing specifics about you. I know this to be true of you because you're created in the image likeness of God, as I am. I always use the movie Inception because, one, I think Christopher Nolan is just genius, but it also captures, minus the gun, it captures what I see this as. That the premise of the film is, can you deposit an idea in the mind of another person such that they accept it as their own idea? And that is really what I see as my quest. Can I take this idea and present it to your mind that you are divine, so much so that you accept it and take it into yourself, and you begin to act from that. That's my hope. That's my prayer. The Bible Hangout is free, but it does cost to produce it. And so if you want to be a partner in this, please consider making a gift. Any gift you make goes a long way to help offsetting the cost. I'm actually in the process of rebranding the Bible Hangout. I'm interested in seeing this message go out around the world and not just be in the select group that it's in, but I believe that we have something that can travel all over the world. And so I'm looking at teams to work with for branding, for understanding just how to do that, how to build an audience beyond the audience that I've figured out how to build. And so if you want to be a part of that, if you want to see this message go around the world, then partner with me in that. And know that any gift you make is appreciated and is going toward those kinds of expenses. So thank you. And you can do that right at revsherry.com. Next week, I'm going to be in Atlantic City. So I'm in Phoenix. And I should say this. Okay, so here's the thing, and I got to figure out this tribute thing. I'm thinking that I may not be able to do the Bible Hangout next week, and it's like got my stomach in knots because I do not miss a Thursday. But we've got the tribute to Reverend Della, and I'm a part of the show, and I'm just concerned about time. So I'll make the announcement next week. I don't want to say now because I may get there and figure out that, oh yeah, I can pull this off. But right now I'm a little nervous timing wise because the tribute is Thursday night, August 2nd, and I am physically in the tribute. And so I want to make sure that I'm able to do both. So yeah, it's bothering me that is the case, but it is likely that I will need to postpone next week. But I'll be in Atlantic City. We do have individual tickets available for sale. So if you are interested in coming to Atlantic City just for the tribute, for the show, I don't know if there's food involved, but for the show, it's $75. It is more than worth it. This is a Broadway level production. I'm telling you that Patty Henley and her team have pulled out all the stops. The music is absolutely incredible. Not just Reverend Della's original songs, but also the ones that were written for the show. The dancing is amazing. They were choreographed by Tony Jones, who is formerly a member of Upchurch, and just, it's so off the chain. Like everything about it is just amazing. It's, video, it's acting, it's dancing, it's singing, it's everything. And the show has so many beautiful highs and lows, and I'm just honored to be a part of it. It is a major, major, major production. So I just encourage you to, if you're on the East Coast, come hang out with us on Thursday night. It will absolutely be worth it. And it'll just be good to see you and put my arms around you and tell you hi and tell you I love you. So come be a part of Thursday night. If you are interested in going to any of the other elements of the program, what I'll do, I'll send out a special email, try to do that tonight or tomorrow, with a link where you can buy individual tickets. So if you are not interested in the whole conference, you live in the area and you're like, I just want to come down for the day, that's actually possible. So I'll send out that link to my email list. I'll do that later tonight when we finish. And you can buy individual tickets. The scripture for this series is, therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. And that's Mark 11:24. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. And so let's just center ourselves in the awareness that God is all there is. There's only one power and one presence. And that power and that presence breathes itself as us, that we are the living embodiment. We are God's living enterprise in the world. God has a stake in our success. And so we ask that the information shared tonight helps us to live out God's vision for our lives, that we reach more deeply inside of ourselves to the Christ that indwells each one of us to live the highest calling for ourselves. We thank you, God, that this message is going all over the world, that this is a world that is hurting. So many people are hurting and need to know that they are divine. They need to know that there is something within them that can change how they live, where they live, and what they experience. And so we're just asking that this message travel, that it leave the boundaries that it's in right now, and that it find expression in the most remote places, and that it becomes a beacon of hope for people who need to know that there is something more than I'm experiencing right now. I thank you because you know the way to make that happen. It's well beyond what I personally know how to do or what any of us know how to do. And so we just ask that this goes forward. I thank you for tonight. I thank you for the spiritual food that you will give us this evening. And I name this experience blessed in the name and nature of Jesus. It is so, and so it is. And amen. So what is liquid light? And so I have my notes here on my iPad and my book, so I'm going to kind of toggle between the two of them. So liquid light, one, I love the term, right? This is like, Neville always comes up with a way to say something, and I'm like, oh, that's so clever. That's so absolutely clever, because liquid light, like, it feels good, right? It feels like something wonderful. So In the UFBL, we have a different term that we use. So if you're a part of Unity or you're a part of the Universal Foundation for Better Living, we use the term substance to describe it. But this is what Neville said. This is a direct quote from him in the chapter. He says, everything in the world is a crystallization of this liquid light. I am the light of the world. So this liquid light is I am. This liquid light, it's the substance, as we would say in UFBL. Your awareness of being is the liquid light of the world, which crystallizes into the conceptions you have of yourself. So when you say, I am rich, then the liquid light crystallizes into experiences that match what I am rich feels like to you. Hear that, because I am rich to me feels different than I am rich to you. I am rich to me feels different than I am rich to, say, Oprah, right? I am rich. So when the liquid light crystallizes, it crystallizes according to the feeling inside of me that matches what I am saying when I use the terms, the phrase, I am rich. When I say I am health, then the liquid light crystallizes into a form of health that matches what I feel when I say I am health, right? It's always because I'm always the operating power in my relationship with this liquid light. And so it cannot give me a creation that is against how I feel about myself. That your awareness of being is the liquid light of the world, which crystallizes into the conceptions of you have of yourself. And this is the rest of the quote. I couldn't fit it all on here without it just looking like a jumbled mess. I'm just going to read this part. I'm at the bottom of 119. He says, your unconditioned awareness of being. So this is the I am in you that does not yet have any kind of form. Your unconditioned awareness of being first conceived itself in liquid light, right? Which is the initial velocity of the universe. So Michael Beckwith often talks about the vibration, right? Everything has a vibration or has a velocity. It has a speed at which it's circulating. Those of you in the UFBL, you know this when we talk about prayer as highly accelerated mind action. It's where you raise your own thinking, your mind, to the level of thinking at the level of liquid light. It's highly accelerated mind action. And prayer is the highest vibration we know, right? And so what Neville is saying is that your unconditioned awareness of being first conceived itself in liquid light, which is the initial velocity of the universe. So it is the highest velocity. All things from the lowest vibrations or expressions of life are nothing more than different vibrations or of velocities of this initial velocity. So gold, silver, iron, wood, flesh, they're only different expressions or velocities of this one substance, liquid light. Everything is vibrating at a certain level, and then where it's vibrating determines how it gets shaped then into form. So all things are different vibrations of liquid light. Again, in UFBL and in Unity, we use the term substance. We often talk about this substance as the body of God, because out of it, everything gets created. Reverend Johnny and Reverend Della would often talk about the divine cookie dough. That this divine that you have the idea for a car. So your mind, through the thoughts that you have about a car, pull out a form that matches how you think and feel in your own mind. And then a substance forms into the car. Now, the path that it takes to come into your experience may vary from person to person. Someone may be gifted a car. Another person might win a car. Somebody else might put aside $100 a month until they can pay for the car. The pathway varies from person to person, but each pathway is the formation of substance. It's crystallizing into your experience. Sometimes we can get hung up on the pathway that something comes into our experience and think that it is different, but it's the same. The pathway is, or let me say this, The pathway may vary, but the process is the same. It is substance crystallizing into form in your experience. One of the things that Neville talks about, he calls that process by which something comes into your experience as the bridge of incident. It's the bridge of incident. And so what he advocates is that you sit with this idea, whatever it is that you want to, you want to, get a new house. Then you sit in the feeling of the new house and you walk through the rooms in the house and you just get a sense of the sensory vividness. What does this house smell like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? You're trying to put the tones of reality around what it is that you want. And as you hold the idea in your mind, the liquid light forms and the experience that you want travels across a bridge of incident into your experience. So that might look like you, again, because I'm open to this, winning the money to get a house. You hit the lottery, right? It also might come in the form of somebody making their transition and gifting you a house. It may come in the form of you putting money aside and purchasing the house. Don't get confused by the means by which something comes into your experience. It comes into your experience according to the way that you can receive it. But the process is the same because it's the crystallization of liquid light into form. I wanted to say one other thing about the liquid light crystallizing into form. Dr. Tara Wright Trent. So I'm in the process of listening to the audiobook, The Awakened Woman by Dr. Tara Wright Trent, and it's an amazing book, right? So there's this woman from Heifer International that comes to her village in Zimbabwe. At the point that Tara Wright meets her, she is basically downtrodden. She's divorced from her first husband, separated from her second one. The second husband was extremely abusive. I mean, just heinously abusive towards her, demeaned her physically, verbally, you name it. And so she has come home, and in her culture, to not have a husband, and that she's basically a shame to the family. And she's worried about how she's going to support herself, because a woman, to be able to support herself, needs a man. She also only has the equivalent of a 9th grade education. So now she's uneducated, so she can't get a better job than basically just working in the fields to care for her children. And she's just sad about life. One day, someone from Heifer International comes to her rural village. Now, she wants a better life. But everything has gone in such a way that it seems like a better life just feels like a distant reality. Like, could that even really be the case for me? The woman from Heifer International, her name is Jolak, and I may be pronouncing it wrong because that's how Tara says it with her Zimbabwean accent. This woman, Jolak, comes in and begins to talk to the women about their dreams. And she asks the women, what their dreams are, and Tara doesn't say anything. But this woman happens to sit next to her. And so she's been quiet the whole time. And so finally, Jolak turns to her and says, well, what's your dream? And Tara, for whatever reason, gets the nerve to say, I want to go to America, and I want to get a bachelor's, and I want to then follow that and get a master's, and then I want to follow that and get a PhD. And it is such a wild dream when you're talking about someone who has only a 9th grade education, who is basically a social pariah in her community and all of that. So this woman says, well, then you can have that. That's a realistic dream. And so Tara goes home to her mom. And fortunately, her mom says, yes, honey, what you do is you write your dreams down and you bury them in the earth, and the earth will nurture them and they will grow. And so she does. She writes down her dream. I want to travel to America, and I want to get a bachelor's, and I want to get a master's, and I want to get a PhD. She gets a tin can and she buries it in the ground. And she takes a rock as kind of a memento to remind her of her dreams. And every couple of days or so, she would go and sit at the mountain. She would dig up the tin can and she would read her dreams. And she would just sit in the feeling of her dreams coming true. And she would imagine, in her country, there were only 2 universities. So at the time that she was trying to go to university. And so the competition is extremely stiff. So you're talking about someone who didn't complete their education, now trying to get into college. It's like the odds are you got a better chance of going to the US to get your degree than you do of going anywhere else. And so she would just sit she had never been to America, but she had this feeling, this idea of what America could feel like. And she would just imagine herself, caring for her children, having enough money for them, having a home. I mean, she would just sit in the reality of this, getting her degree, and she would just imagine this. And she said, I could sit there for an hour at least, just in the feeling of the dream realized. Now, and then she'd rebury the dreams and in the ground. And this was a ritual in her village. And for her, the earth was nurturing her dreams. In our language, as she's sitting there dreaming about what it is that she wants to be and living in the feeling of the desire, that the liquid light is forming around her. And I haven't gotten to the books. I know all the details of like the Bridge of Incident, but essentially she begins correspondence classes. I know this part from an interview. She begins correspondence classes with a university or someplace in either France or England. And that's how she gets basically her GED. And then she begins to apply to university. And I believe she ends up at the University of Oklahoma. I may have that wrong because I haven't gotten to that part of the book. But that liquid light is, as she's dreaming on that mound, sitting under that tree, having nothing to her name, no husband, 4 children that she's got to care for, not knowing how. As she's sitting and dreaming about it, the liquid light is forming the bridge of incident. That then now she sits and she's Dr. Tara Trent. There's a beautiful story of how she actually runs into the woman Jolak who first introduced this idea that she could actually have a dream that could come true. And she ends up like randomly running into her in the US. And Jolak ends up going on to become the CEO of Heifer International. Beautiful story. If we can learn to follow Terrorize's example of writing down what it is that we want, and then you can bury it in the earth if that feels true to you, but have it somewhere where you feel like this is being nurtured. My dreams are being cared for. The earth is very important to agricultural communities. We're sort of a little bit distant from that in the US because our food comes out of a grocery store and few of us have been on a farm or live a life where we'd end up on a farm. But what would make you feel like your dreams are being nurtured? And then to just sit in the feeling. Can you sit for an hour in the feeling of what it is that you're asking for? Just let that wash over you, because as you do, the liquid light begins to form and shape itself into the bridge of incident across which you will travel with grace and ease into what you are asking for. So I did a Google search and this was what came up for liquid lights. Apparently there is something called liquid light that science uses or whatever. That's why I chose this picture. So the thing that I thought was powerful about liquid light. So there was a sermon that Reverend Mary had given years ago now. This had to be, I was living in Studio City. So this had to be circa 2001, like right around that time, 2000, 2001. And okay, I can say this. It was after the first Venus and Serena finals for US Open, whichever one happens in September. It was after that. And it was before I had worked on Biker Boys. So it was somewhere in there. So that's like 2000, 2001, early 2002, somewhere in there. Anyway, I say all that to say that Reverend Mary had given a sermon, and she said that substance is the key to prosperity. Learning how to work with substance is the key to prosperity. I said, okay, then I want to understand that because I need some prosperity. Because in my life right now, I just stopped being homeless. And so I need to get some clarity. And so I literally got a dictionary. We have this thing called the Fillmore Concordance. I don't have it here with me in Phoenix. The Fillmore Concordance, and what it is that it is a concordance of all of Fillmore's works. And so you can look up a topic, and it'll bring up all the different places that it appears in different works of Fillmore. And so I didn't just go to the dictionary. I got the concordance and said, let me find everywhere that Fillmore talks about substance and let me just read it. And so I literally made a compilation of every place that he talks about substance so that I could understand this thing called substance. I needed to know what this is. I needed to understand this at the core of my being. And I got some insights, and I want to share them with you tonight. I want to talk about substance or liquid light as the key to your permanent prosperity and understanding how to work with it. And I want to share with you some of the insights because this is something that I've been studying for the last 20 years. And I want to share with you some of the insights over these last 20 years. So the first key insight is that liquid light comprises everything. To really, 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 really get that. Neville says, psychically, this is on page 118, he says, psychically, this world appears as an ocean of light containing within itself all things, including man, as pulsating bodies enveloped in liquid light. Many of us know the scripture, Acts 17:28, in him we live and move and have our being, that we are ensconced in this liquid light. In the UFBL, we have a statement of being that says there is only one power and one presence in the universe, God the good, omnipotent, the everywhere evenly present spirit of absolute good. Everything that exists or ever will exist is pressed out of the body of God, God's substance. Since the nature of God is absolute good, there can be no evil in reality. And so this liquid light or this substance it's in everything. So, this pen is substance manifested as this pen, or liquid light. This ruler is substance manifested as this ruler. This cup of water is the cup, the water, and the ice manifested in these different forms that each one of them, when you reduce it back to its constituent elements, is essentially substance or liquid light. And each one has a different velocity, right? Each one has a different velocity, a different vibration that forms it into the various shapes that it takes on. But my body is substance manifested as my body. So everything is substance. So when I was trying to really anchor this idea in my mind, and I would do this thing with myself all day, that everything that I would touch, I would say, okay, this note card is substance manifested as a note card. This, phone is substance manifested as a phone. And I would do that because I was trying to, we live such outwardly oriented lives that what I wanted to do was to really reorient myself and to remind myself that everything is substance at its core. That it looks different, so it looks like these discrete units, but everything is substance at its core. Nothing, there is no reality outside of what is created in substance. So there's nothing that you will reduce it and then it won't be substance. Substance or liquid light is all things. But then it's also the things that you don't perceive with your five senses, but the things that you feel. So feel. Feel is like to fill a cup. Feel like touch. It's the country accent coming. So it's also your relationships. So your relationship is substance manifested or liquid light manifested as your relationship. Problems on the job or opportunities on the job are the same. It is liquid light manifested as your job, as the problems on the job, as the solution to the problem on the job. Like it is, the liquid light is both the problem and the solution. Hear that? Liquid light is both the problem and the solution. So it is everything that manifests, whether it's something that you can perceive with your five senses, or it's something that you just feel inside yourself, real or imagined, meaning you might be in a contentious relationship with a coworker or with a friend or whatever. That's still substance manifested, or that's still liquid light formed into that relationship and the elements of that relationship. So liquid light comprises everything. There is nothing, the scripture would say that nothing was made that was not made with I am being the liquid light. Nothing was made that exists that was not made with the liquid light. The liquid light is everything. It comprises everything. It is, it's at the core, and it stands in complete integrity under every expression, seen and unseen. And let me know if you have any questions about this, or if I'm moving too fast through this, because I really want this to land. I want this to really stick, because again, this is the key to prosperity. So the money that you have in your bank account, in your wallet, in your investments, is liquid light manifested as that money. It's all the same. It's all the same. Liquid light comprises everything. And so when you get this unlocks your prosperity. And I'm going to keep going, because I think you'll see this as we keep going. The second insight I want to share with you is that you cannot exhaust liquid light. This might be a difficult concept to grasp, and I'll tell you why. Because in the three-dimensional world, you can use things up. So I can drink all the water from this cup, right? That in the three-dimensional world, I can drink up all the water, right? I can consume it. In this pen, there is a measure of ink, and I can use up the ink in this pen, right? This is a emery board, right? And so it has a certain texture that I use to file a nail, but over time and with continued use, I can use up its usefulness. Eventually, the surface becomes too dull to do the work an emery board is intended to do. If physical existence is the epitome of expression, then it's very hard to conceive of something that never gets used up. It's just a foreign concept. It's hard to think that way. And this is why when I would walk around, I would say, this is substance manifested as, this is substance manifested. And I did, this is substance manifested as, I try to find different random, unrelated objects to remind myself that everything is substance manifested, or everything is liquid light manifested. You cannot exhaust liquid light. And so when we live these outwardly oriented lives, we treat life as if it's a zero-sum game, meaning that if I don't get it, we're going to run out of it, and somebody, or if I don't get it, somebody else might get it, and we might potentially run out of what I want or I feel like I need. And so we move through life with this scarcity mentality. And we talk about things like supply and demand, and that there's not enough to go around. And so you see people, communities, nations hoarding resources. Something I learned, and I don't know the complete details of this, so someone may be a little bit more versed than I am, but in the US, we have oil reserves in, I believe, the West and the Midwest, or I'm saying Midwest. Midwest is more Chicago, Illinois, Indiana, but like Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, places like that are just untapped. Colorado, Utah, just untapped. And for whatever reason, we go and we make deals outside of the US because there's the fear that we're going to tap out of our own resources. And so we have this idea that we can use up what has been given to us, and that there is not enough. And so we wage wars, we create conflicts, we get into battles, all based around this idea that there's not enough. People keep opportunities from other people or other groups, because there's this idea that if I don't protect what's here for my people, then if some other people get an opportunity, there won't be enough for me and my people. And so it's a really hard mentality, because we're educated in it from the time that we are babies into adulthood. And if you don't come into a teaching like this, which says that there is more than enough, and not only that, it's unlimited, then you live your life with this zero-sum game of trying to keep from others and hoard for yourself. And so it's really important to realize that you cannot run out of liquid light. You cannot run out of liquid light. And a corollary to that is not to get caught up on any particular form. Not to get caught up on any particular form. So you may run out of the ink on this pen, right? You may run out of the elements that produce the ink. That's possible. But if you sit in the feeling of what it is that you want, then liquid light will then produce a new way to meet the need that you have to write down what it is that you want to write down. We get hung up on the form, right? So we say, well, the only way that you can, have a house is that you've got to, put 10% down, you've got to save this, you got to do that. And you very well could be gifted a house. You can't get caught up on the form. You choose what you want. The Spirit of God chooses the how it comes into your experience. There is, sometimes that's why they say have a dream that's bigger than anything that you could accomplish on your own, for a few reasons. One, because you got to surrender and let go of how it comes into your experience. You literally have to just let it go. Like if I'm Tara Trent and I'm sitting in Zimbabwe and I'm feeling like I'm the forgotten woman, those are her words, I'm feeling like I'm the forgotten woman, then I don't know how God is going to get me to the US for an education. I really have to let this one go. But sometimes our dreams are too small and we're trying to control the bridge of incident. We don't control the bridge of incident. What we have to know is that substance or liquid light is exhaustless. You cannot exhaust it. No matter how many creations you make, there are always more creations that can be made. And so I'm not worried about what gets used up in my experience, because what I need, liquid light will form a bridge of incident to bring me. And so I'm not worried about things running out. What makes the universe abundant is not that we will never run out of the specific resources that we use right now. It's that we will never run out of what we need to do life. And so if all the forms of transportation should disappear, but we still need transportation, then liquid light will bring into expression other means of transportation that look nothing like what they look like today. So what makes this universe abundant is that liquid light will form itself into whatever it is that we need to meet whatever need we identify. And so if the need is transportation and no cars exist, then the means for transportation will present itself and will evolve from there and get better and better. That's what makes this universe abundant. And so we have to be mindful that you cannot exhaust liquid light and never get caught up on a form. Never get caught up on a form. I've watched a video earlier today that I thought was awesome. There's a Barbadian man, I don't remember his name. He is 66 years old, and he is a bodybuilder, and he didn't start being a bodybuilder until after he retired. And except for the age in his face, to look at his body looks like the body of a young man. And now he's like racing in different events. It's awesome. It's awesome to watch. And something that he said I thought was key. He said, yes, the body does slow down as you age, but it doesn't stop. And sometimes we get married to a form of how something looks, thinking that I can't have it because I'm now at this age. And it's like, yeah, the means for me having what I want may change, but it doesn't stop. I can still have what I want. And if what I want is liquid light in the form of a healthy body, guess what? I can have it. I can absolutely have it. So key point. Definitely keep this in mind. And the reason how this ties into prosperity is sometimes we feel like, well, this is my last $20. And Reverend Della used to say, if all you got is $20, you need to hurry up and give that away, right? And open something else up. We have this idea that this that we have is our last. And there's no such thing as my last anything, because substance or liquid light can never be exhausted. And so we would do better to give away what we have so that we can open the way for more to come. Sometimes what's blocking what we want is that we're holding on to the last $20. And so substance can't get in because we got this closed fist, fearful that if we let this go, nothing else is coming. And we need to just let it go, like really, really let it go. You cannot exhaust liquid light, which means that whatever money has manifested for you, whatever that is, whether you've got a pension or whether you're living on a fixed income or whether you are jobless right now or you're temping, that you've got to get that this is not the last of the money that I have. Sometimes, if you're working with unemployment, right? And, unemployment is for a fixed period of time. And so there's this idea that you're on this countdown, right? My last check is coming. And I'm saying, kill that idea. The last check through this channel called unemployment is coming, but that's not the last check coming, because I cannot exhaust liquid light. And so what I would do well to do is write down what I want, decide what I want. What level income do I want? And what am I willing to give in exchange for? What do I want to do in order to earn that kind of money? And then sit in the feeling of doing that and earning that kind of money. And just spend time there. Like, what would that feel like? You cannot exhaust liquid light. You cannot exhaust it. So please let go of the idea that this is my last. That's a lie, and you need to kill it dead. The third insight I want to share with you is that liquid light responds to the demand placed upon it. Liquid light responds to the demand placed upon it. So a lot of times we wait until we run out of something or almost run out of something before we place a demand for it. And I don't mean, being a wise steward of what you have and not overbuying and all of that. But I'm saying that sometimes we get to the last of what we have, and then it's like, oh, okay, now like the panic sets in and we start creating to get back up to what feels normal for us. We have to realize that liquid light responds to the demand placed upon it. So I'm not waiting to run out of something in order to give liquid light or give I am something new to work with. Neville says this. He says, man's ideas resemble birds in flight. And previously he had referenced the story of Noah. Like the dove in the story of Noah, returning to man without finding a place to rest. If man will not let such fruitless searches discourage him, one day the bird will return with a green sprig. Sometimes we give up creating what we want because it doesn't come fast enough. And we think that if the dream hasn't manifested after the 2 times that we visualized it, then it must not be for us. But we have to remember that, one, we're changing consciousness, right? So it takes time to turn into the person who can have what you want, to become the person with the habits, the behaviors, the attitudes who can have what you want. Liquid light absolutely responds to the demand placed on it. And so you can trust the process. And I wrote this, I said, we often allow scarcity or the absence of something to drive the demands that we place on substance. Sometimes we will place demands when we're in this lack mode. And so we ask for the rent when actually we need the rent, we need the light bill, we need the phone bill, we need all the bills and things handled. But we're in this scarcity mode, so we only ask for the one thing because there's no room in us to ask for something bigger. So substance or liquid light is going to respond to any demand that you place on it. It doesn't look to say if the idea that you're giving it needs to be expressed. It says, this is what you've given me, I will express. So you don't have to qualify what you want when you work with God. You don't have to say, I want this because, I mean, maybe you need to know the why for yourself, but God doesn't need to know the why. You give the demand. This, Father, this is what I'm asking for. And as his beloved child, he gives to you. As his beloved child, he gives to you exactly what it is that you ask for in the way that you ask for it. And so start now thinking about what it is that you want. Your thoughts shape liquid light. That's the way that you work with liquid light. So think about Tererai sitting under that tree in Zimbabwe, living in the feeling of what it would be like to be in the U.S. She's never been in the U.S. She doesn't even know what a plane looks like. But she imagines in her own conception what it might feel like to be on a plane traveling to the U.S. to go to university. That your thoughts shape liquid light. What do you think about all day? Because what you think about all day is what is shaping liquid light. And this is why understanding how to work with liquid light is the key to prosperity. Because what if all day long, decide the amount of money that you want. Let's say that, I want to earn $10,000 net per month, right? What if all day long you thought about what it would feel like to bring in that kind of income? The same way that Tara would go and sit under that tree and read through her dreams and then just sit and imagine what it would be like to just have a life so different from the one she was in. Her husband beat her senseless, physically beat her senseless. She actually caught him in the bed with another woman, confronted him, and he told her that because he was her second husband and that he basically had done her a favor by marrying her, that she had no right to ever question who he slept with or whether or not he was physically safe with them and, using a condom or whatever and sleeping with them. And so she's sitting there crying, and she talks about her children, and I think her oldest daughter, seeing her being beat by her husband, and the terror on her daughter's face, and then the realization, and she just felt such shame and such pain and just dejectedness and such a low sense of self-worth. And so now this woman comes from Heifer International, and she's sitting and she's just dreaming about how would life be to be in the U.S. pursuing an education and just, like being able to care for herself. And she always wanted to be educated. It just was that in her village, the focus was on the boys. So you educate the boys, and the girls you don't educate. So she learned by doing her brother's homework. That's how she learned. So your thoughts, what you think about all day, will shape your experience. I really encourage you to go look up some interviews with her. There's a really good one from Lewis Howes on YouTube that's just really powerful. It was how I learned about who she is. And Oprah talks about her as her favorite guest. And when you hear her story, you will understand why she's just the bee's knees. I dig her so much. So what do you think about all day? Because that's the demand that you're placing on liquid light. What do you think about all day? Do you constantly feel like you don't have enough time? Because then liquid light is shaping itself into the circumstances that match not having enough time. Do you worry that you're not going to have enough money to do what you want to do? Is that what you think about all day? Then liquid light is shaping itself. This is why Reverend Mary taught me that this is the key to understanding prosperity. What do you think about all day? Because what you think about all day is shaping substance. It's turning it into what you want, even though you would say, well, I don't want to not have enough money. But the universe only knows to give you what you spend your time thinking about. Let me know if you guys have any questions, or if this is landing with you. Help me so I know that I'm moving in the right direction and that this is sticking. I want you to get this, because I really believe that if you do, that it's going to open up a level of money for you that that you previously have not had. So you want to begin to discipline yourself to only think of what you want. Now, this is hard because this is not how we live life. Our news cycle doesn't support this. Our Facebook feed cycle doesn't support this. Discipline yourself to only think of what you want. You know, one of the things that you may have to do is kind of take a break from some of the things that you consume, because it's interfering with your ability to discipline yourself to think only of what you want. You want to condition yourself to think only of what you want, even in the absence of the thing you want. This is where it gets tough, right? Because, you know, again, using Terrorite Trent, and maybe her situation was, she just wanted anything other than what she had. And so she was willing to have this dream. I don't know. But sometimes it's hard to sit in the feeling of what you want when what you don't want is such a strong presence in your life, right? You don't want to, you want to have more money, but the presence of its lack, right, of the feeling of lack is so strong that it's hard to live in the feeling of not having, right? In the feeling of having. And so you want to then build in specific periods. So if you say, you know, at 9 a.m., noon, and 3 p.m., and 9 p.m. at night, whatever, I'm just making these up, but 4 times a day, I'm going to take 5 minutes and I'm just going to sit in the feeling of what it is that I want. I'm going to think about what it could be like. You know, one of the things that I would like to see is I would really like to see the Bible Hangout travel all over the world. I think that this is such a powerful conversation that we have every Thursday night. And so something I'm going to do, I'm going to give myself this action item, is maybe 4 times a day for 5 minutes. So what is that, 20 minutes a day? 4 times a day for 5 minutes is just to sit in the feeling of what that might feel like, to get a note from somebody in South Africa who says, I listened to the Bible Hangout and it made such a difference in my experience. Or to, you know, have somebody from Australia say, gosh, I'm so glad I found you. I can't believe you've been here all this time. This is exactly what I needed, right? It's just to sit in that feeling. So you may not be able to control your thought all day, because the mind moves according to habit. And in what I call guarded moments, where you're on your P's and Q's and watching what you're thinking, it's easy to stay, you know, in the right mindset. But when you're not, right, when you're in traffic, or you are hanging out with friends, or you're whatever, right, but you're not in a guarded moment. It's in those unguarded moments that the mind runs where it normally likes to run. And so what you want to begin to do is to then build in specific moments, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, where you just take some time and just sit in the feeling of the finished expression. Just sit in the feeling, because liquid light is going to respond to the demand placed upon it. And the bridge of incident to get to where you want to go is going to present itself. Hope this is landing. I'm going to trust that it is. So then the fourth insight, and this is the final one, is that the key to working with liquid light is controlled thought. Your thoughts control liquid light. Now, each of us, and I just alluded to this, has a type of thinking that we've been conditioned to do most often. So I remember being in college, before I understood substance or anything like that. I just knew I didn't want to be a bitter person. Before I understood substance, before I understood any of that, I remember being in college, or right after college, and I remember riding with girlfriends, or with a girlfriend or whatever, and noticing interracial relationships. And the friend that I was riding with might make a comment about, you know, seeing a black man with, say, a white woman, or with somebody else. And that the person I was riding with might make a comment, right? A derogatory comment or whatever. Hello? Somebody has a comment? Oh, somebody's unmuted. Okay. That might make a derogatory comment or something like that. And I remember consciously thinking, you know, I don't want to be bitter about this, because whatever this thing is, it's happening. And who am I to say how someone finds love? And so at that point, I was making a conscious choice when I would see an interracial couple, because I was catching myself doing it when I wasn't with this particular friend. I was catching myself noticing an interracial couple and feeling a certain kind of way about it. And I made a conscious decision that I didn't want to be that bitter person. If that is how that person found love or finds love or whatever, then I bless whatever that is. And so I'm saying this to say that many of us have ways of thinking that we have been conditioned to think. Thinking about gender, thinking about sexuality and sexual orientation, thinking about race and race relations. We have conditioned ways of thinking, and they have been in us so much that they feel real. In fact, we think it so thoroughly, we can't imagine thinking something different. That to think something different, we become the voice in our own head saying that you're foolish for trying to see this, or you're Pollyanna for trying to see the world differently. To think what you want to think as opposed to what you are conditioned to think is probably going to be one of the hardest things that you do. But you've got to remember that this is the key to your prosperity. You're trying to unlock a dimension of yourself that has not yet been expressed, that has not yet been shown or given to the world. You're trying to get at the deepest treasures inside of you and get who you are out into expression, right? In the biggest way possible that matches who you are and what you want to accomplish. So it's worth the effort, but I don't want to lie to you and tell you that it will not be effort. It will tax you because, you know, to think differently than the way that you were taught to think, you know, it might feel like you're making mama wrong. It might feel like you're making daddy wrong. It may feel like you're breaking the bond with your community. It might feel like you're not seeing life realistically, right? You know, to not believe that racism can stop you. You know, I don't talk about that often, but I don't believe that racism can stop me. If I am the Son of God in whom He's well pleased, if my thoughts are what shape liquid life, then what could you do to me? You know, and I don't talk about it often because I don't want to have a whole lot of outside conversations because I'm still working with my own belief inside of that, right? So the key to working with liquid light is controlled thought. We tend to think in deeply ingrained ways. And what neuroscience tells us is that when we think in a particular direction, that what happens is with every thought, a neural pathway is formed. And so when we have thought in a particular direction, we have literally formed a neural network in that direction of thinking. And so when you try to think in a different way that is opposite to the pathway that's been formed in your mind, it's literally like trying to get over an addiction because you have become addicted to that way of thinking and feeling. And so it takes great effort to form a new neural pathway. And the old neural pathway is strong because it's the way you've been thinking. It's the way you've been conditioned to think. It's the way you think without thinking to think that way. Okay? And so to go then in a different direction, it's an internal battle that most people give up because it's tough. It's what happens when someone says, you know what, I'm going to quit smoking. It's not just the physical addiction to the nicotine, but it's also the neural addiction to the nicotine and all the ways that you have been thinking as a smoker. It's a big deal. And so then to shift, to go from thinking that there is a group of people who have control over your life and everybody in your social circle and everybody in their social circle believes that there is a group of people who can control your destiny, to then shift and say, I can control my destiny. That's some work. That's some work. It's possible. People have done it. We've got examples like Will Smith and Ava DuVernay and Oprah Winfrey and Robert Smith and Folorushu Alakesia, and we've got examples. I can pull my examples. Isabel dos Santos, we've got examples. There are people, but it takes work. It takes work to break the chains. And I'm saying that you can do it, but you can't do it then still consuming the stuff that supports this way of thinking. What happens, you hear motivational speakers tell you, you got to get clear on your why, because there's going to come a time where the old way of thinking is as strong as the new way of thinking. So they're almost canceling each other out, and there feels like no movement, no momentum. And it can be very, very discouraging. You are working to change your body, to eat differently, to exercise more, to just, to take a better approach to your health. And the scale is not moving, and it's still a struggle to get up in the morning to go to the gym and yada, yada, yada. When you know why you're doing it, it helps you to keep pushing in that direction, even when the progress seems small or almost non-existent. In New Thought, we talk about being magnetized, that your thinking is like a magnet because it draws to you things that match your thinking. So even when you stop thinking, the magnet doesn't demagnetize immediately. It's not like a turn off, right? I'm still magnetized to believe that there are people who can have control over my destiny. That magnet is still there, right? That magnet is still in my experience, right? It's still there. It's in news reports. It's in other things that catch my ear. It's still there. It's in conversations with family members. It's still there. And so this new way of thinking that says, no, nothing external to me has power over me. That means people, places, and things. I'm not subject to the whims of the government or economic policies or any of that. That the liquid light that I have control over through my thinking can move around through places that I myself humanly could not get to. So that magnet is not as strong yet as the other one. And so it is, I have to remind myself to think this way. I don't have to remind myself to think that way. But how I think moves the liquid light. How I think shapes the way that substance forms itself into my experience. And so Neville explains it this way, and this is why it's worth persisting. It's worth putting the effort in. It's worth doing the work. And I think of Terry Trent when I read this quote from him. He said, "One day man or woman will become so identified with his new conception that he will know it to be himself, and he will declare, I am. I am that which I desire to be. I am that I am." He will find that as he does, so he will begin to embody his desire, thereby realizing the mystery of the Word made flesh. That Terry held on to this dream, held on to this idea, even sitting in a village working in an agricultural community, held on to this idea that I am that. I am that woman who found a way out of this village to America to get an education. It's possible. So one of the things, this part makes me emotional, but it's just, but it's powerful because if you can hold on to that, you can go through anything. You can walk through walls. You can walk through fire. You can do whatever you have to. So there's this story that she tells about being in university and not having enough money. So her kids, she has 4 kids, and she's like, I'm not leaving them. They're coming with me to the US, and I don't care what the struggle is in order to get them there. So she gets them to the US, and, in Zimbabwe, fresh fruit, vegetables, and things are everywhere. It's just easy to put your hands on. When she gets to the US, what's easy to put your hands on is fast food. And over a period of time, she would see her kids in the morning were brushing their teeth and their gums were bleeding. And she realized that it was the malnutrition. But what she could afford was McDonald's, because if you think about it, that's what's cheap and affordable in our country. Fresh fruit and vegetables, you got to pay a grip to get that good stuff. She goes to the grocery store and she begs him to say, you throw out so much produce. I'm trying to support my kids. I'm in school. And he says to her, he's like, yeah, absolutely. I'll leave it for you. And then I guess they figured out, wait a minute, this could turn into something. They're like, no, I can't give this to you because if something happens to your kids, you might bring a lawsuit or whatever. And she's like, I'm trying to bring a lawsuit. I'm trying to feed my kids and get through school. And so his compromise is that I will put the vegetables in a bin, the fresh fruit and vegetables in a bin, the ones that we're throwing out, next to the trash can. If you're not here by 4:00, you can get your stuff out of the dumpster. And in the interview, she says 99% of the time she was late. She was coming from work or coming from school, going to work or whatever. 99% of the time, she said, I was in the dumpster digging for my food. And the way that she persisted was that she said, at least it's a clean dumpster, because I'm so fortunate. And she would talk about how grateful she is to make it through this. You can go through anything to get to where you want to be if you will hold to the conception, if you will make it so real to yourself that the bridge of incident across which you walk becomes no thing, because what I want is so much more real to me, is so much more powerful to me than what I have to go through to become it. And so it's liquid light. It is your supply. It absolutely is your supply. Acts 17:28 says, in him we live, move, and have our being. Liquid light is your supply. And when you understand liquid light, when you understand substance, you recognize that you can always create more of what you desire. That I am never without. I am never without. I always have what I need in order to get to where I want to go. That nothing has the power to hold me back. I'm not subject to someone agreeing with my dreams. I'm not subject to it. You could agree or disagree. It is not even required. It is not even required. What is required, that I agree with my dreams, that I dare to sit and feel what it feels like to have a ministry that travels all over the world, that goes into places that I physically have never even been, that touches people that I don't even know. That the liquid light is the supply. And if you will sit and give to it the things that you want, it will return to you more than you ever could have imagined. And so in review, these are 4 insights for working with liquid light. Number 1, liquid light comprises everything. Everything you see is liquid light in expression. Plant, animal, inanimate, animate, doesn't matter. Everything is liquid light in expression. You cannot exhaust liquid light. You just can't use it up. It enters into every form, but never in any kind of final way. So it may enter into the form of a car, but it doesn't exhaust itself creating the car. It may enter into the form of a piece of jewelry, but it doesn't exhaust itself in that piece of jewelry. That you cannot exhaust liquid light. Liquid light responds to the demand placed upon it. That whatever you think about all day long, liquid light begins to shape itself into that for you. And the key to working with liquid light is learning to control that thought. Learning to take that time to make it consistent and to see it changing, to see what you want and to feel what you want. And as you do, it forms the bridge of incident across which you will travel from where you are to where you want to be. And so my question to you is, can you use this concept to help you navigate the universe better? I hope this has unlocked for you a way that you can begin to have the money that you want, to stop thinking about all day about what you don't have and to think all day about what you do have. To keep in mind the example of Tara Trent as she sat under that tree, imagining herself, this woman, the forgotten woman, imagining herself having a doctorate. How wild is that? And dreaming of it and sitting in the feeling of it and believing that it could be so, and then taking whatever action she could take in order to make it so. Before you move to the next task, I love to give you a little homework. Plan out a 7-day challenge to locate liquid life in your everyday experience, right? So if this is liquid light manifested as this pen. This is liquid light manifested as this note card. And just 7 days, right? Where you're just reminding yourself that everything is liquid light manifested as. And then what I want you to do is journal your insights. Things are going to come to you. Insights are going to come to you that will likely be different from the things that we talked about here tonight. You want your own understanding of this. You want your own insights about this. I'm sharing with you what the Spirit gave me, but there's something that the Spirit wants to give you about how you work with liquid light. And so as you move through your everyday life, just reminding yourself that this is liquid light and expression. And this is liquid light and expression. And you want to journal whatever comes up. Just 7 days. If this webinar helped you, please subscribe and share it with a friend. Help this ministry go around the world. Maybe you have a friend in South Africa, or you have a friend in London or Scotland or Ireland or Australia or some other wild place that I've never been. Send it to them and say, hey, check this out. This blessed me, and I think this might bless you. Any questions? Any questions? I'm trusting that this landed, that this made. Yes.
You have lots of comments in the chat.
Oh, I do? Oh,
Yeah.
Lord, I didn't even see any of them. Oh, mercy. Oops. No, I couldn't see the comments. Lord have mercy.
Okay.
Okay, Lisa says, spiritual substance is all around us, waiting to be formed. Science of mind. It's not hard to think that adverse situations are not liquid light. It's hard not to think that adverse situations are not liquid light. It sure is. Constance says, we give up 5 minutes before the miracle, the perfect outworking of God. I wonder what happened that I couldn't see the comments. That's so weird. Okay. Oh, wow. Reverend Ann always said your remas, your dreams, I'm assuming. Your dreams are not too big. Go ahead, dream big. Your dreams. Yes, yes, yes. Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for tonight. So I didn't see any of the comments. I normally check them, but I didn't get the normal alert that I get. So anyway, thank you so much for tonight. This has been a blessing. And next week, all right, I got to figure this out. I'm not even sure how it's going to work out. I'm just going to know that the means for it will be, the show is at 7 o'clock, which is technically 4 o'clock. So that gives us 3 hours before I've got to sit down for the Bible Hangout. So that's the plan, which would be 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So once I get to Atlantic City, I'll have a better idea of whether or not this is feasible. And I'll send out an email if I know that it's not going to work out. And then what I'll do right now is I'll send out the email with the links for those of you that are interested in purchasing the single tickets. So I believe pretty much everything that we have going on at the conference, you can purchase a single ticket to attend. If you're going to choose to do anything, I would say please choose to do the tribute. It's amazing. I've been at the rehearsals. We've rehearsed into the night. While I'm in Phoenix, they're back home rehearsing. When I get back Saturday, they're rehearsing Saturday, rehearsing Sunday after church. They're rehearsing Monday. Like it is, it's going to be amazing. So thank you so much for tonight. I bless you and I release you, and I will see you next week. The breath of life. God bless.